Good morning, good
Hello.
afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you watch this video. Welcome and welcome, Vignesh. Welcome, Thomas. It's great to have you here. So, once again, we are 3 instead of 4, but that's life. Sometimes it's the pleasure part, sometimes it's the business part, sometimes it's a pleasure to have business. Whatever. So we are here to talk about tenant-to-tenant migration, and especially with one of my favorite topics. But before we start, I would like to make an announcement for the next one, for our live stream in 2 weeks on the 19th of June. We will talk about your questions. We will summarize a little bit our journey over the personal data, the collaboration data, devices, user adoption, compliance, and everything we were talking about the last 6 and in total about 7 hours, just about tenant-to-tenant migration. And we are interested to hear your questions. We have prepared a questionnaire for you. If you want to put it, you want to use it, you can go for it. This is a short one, rebrand.li, rebrandly /T2T mic minus your minus questions. Feel free to put in your question and we can put them and answer that. Otherwise, you can join us, of course, live. I will make more announcements about this. You will see it in social media as well. So I'm looking forward to hear your questions. Okay, enough for advertising right now. Let's start with a short introduction. Who wants to start? Thomas today?
Yeah, let me start today. Hey, I'm Thomas, and welcome to, I guess it's now the 6th or the 7th session.
7th.
And I think that's one of the most important one. I'm an MVP, focusing mainly on teams. I'm an MVP since 2012, so pretty long, hoping to just be re-awarded in exactly 4 weeks. Press thumb.
Thank you. Vignesh?
Hey everyone, hello. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it for the last week's session, but here I am back again. So my name is Vignesh. I'm once again a M365 Apps and Services MVP. So been working with tenant-to-tenant migrations for a very good amount of time, and I'm really excited about today's topic. Thank you.
Awesome. So the last step for myself. Michael, I'm also MVP for M365 Office Apps and Services. That means I talk a lot about Microsoft 365 topics. I'm also a managing partner of a company focusing on teams, change management, user adoption. And that's actually our topic for today. So I will talk about user adoption. And I will have some tricky questions from my colleagues here. So, and you, of course, you can put it in the chat as well. But the idea is to talk about the challenges with user adoption. Okay, let me start with a challenge to you, guys. How many projects do you have where you have a dedicated budget and time and budget for user adoption?
Vignesh, go ahead.
Well, I really like the way you passed the ball to me, but yeah, of course, to be very honest, that's something which is more than often not really considered, or even if it is considered, it takes the last place for whatever reasons, right? Because if you look at a tenant-to-tenant migration, it's always the so-called technical part which wants to take the front seat, and all the other things go to the back. But and I think as I said in the beginning of these sessions, right, a tenant-tenant migration is just not about the technology, it's all about the people, making the people successful. And I think that's where the adoption comes in and plays a very huge role. But to answer your question, yes, in industry, I see this as a very big problem because adoption, often at all, it's just avoided, or even if there is a budget, there is a very less budget. And this is a very main reason why a lot of these tenant-to-tenant migration projects, they just simply fail. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe on my side, so just the last projects which we had, so during the last 2.5 years, yes, we had a pretty large budget actually for, they called it change and adoption. Right now I'm in a medium-sized project as well, so they wanted to do adoption themselves, but figured out, actually that is more work than ever. So that is already causing problems. But on the other hand, I still struggle even with certain change and adoption teams about what is the difference between change and adoption. And that's also a huge confusion. And maybe before I pass this definitely to Michael, because I think that's the most important question first we have to discuss about. Adoption, it's actually something, it always existed, but it was never adopted in IT. So it just came up, I want to say the last 3 years, so to speak, maybe 4. Before that, we had always change. And change was something about communicating. But adapting, especially in a cross-tenant migration, it's even something completely new. And I think we need a third word for it. So it's a change and adoption at the same time. But now, Michael, what is your view on change and adoption?
Oh, actually, I love the summary from Vignesh. Everyone knows it should be good to have adoption together with change. But usually no one reserves some money, or if there's enough money and the budget is almost at the end, this is the first thing they reduce or even cut out. So the main issue I see is this is nothing on a paper, nothing you need to make your project, your tenant-to-tenant migration, successful. On paper, it's just about the numbers. How many users have you moved from one to the other environment? How many data have you moved? And all the stuff. But at the end, if you are not working with change and user adoption, the whole project will, I wouldn't say fail, but not successful. And you invest more money, and that's the part. You invest more money to speed up the users, bring them back at work during or after the project, as you would have spent in the right user and adoption program, actually. Because from my experience, the most people, also even Microsoft, a couple of years ago, they had just numbers in their head. They just were thinking about achieving a specific number. Microsoft, for example, for a couple of years ago, was selling X licenses. That's it. And even in other projects, we just see, I want to have all users enabled for, I don't know, Exchange, Teams, SharePoint. I want to have a intranet, for example. Mm-hmm. And the numbers from the management are just related to these numbers. We have achieved 100% rollout for Exchange. We have exceeded 100% Teams user coverage. Yes, everyone is there, especially, and it's interesting to see with competing products like communication products, Teams and Exchange. Mm-hmm. if you just drop Teams and everyone can use it, it doesn't mean someone use it.
Yeah.
And this mind change goes up to, this is not about reaching numbers for rollout, for selling licenses. We have to also evaluate the numbers, how many people use these, what is the actual usage. Does they use the product right is the next question. So make it interesting about the change. This is something what happens. To make them feel they want to use the new way. You hope and you calculated your numbers, so your ROI, they will use it. That's the interesting part about user adoption itself. And there's no challenge actually, no difference from this high level perspective between tenant-to-tenant migration and other projects itself.
Maybe there is an important part before we go back and talk about change and adoption. It's the price-wise thing. So let me simplify it. Not everyone is a business administration expert or financial expert, but you have so-called to a project direct and indirect costs.
Yeah.
And a direct cost is like actually, okay, what does it directly cost me, what I'm paying to the company who supports me or executes the cross-tenant migration. That's definitely one part. Yes, change and adoption also, it's a cost which is actually also direct, but the impact, especially before, during, and after the migration, that are costs which are hidden, so to speak, which means if someone is not enabled to work a fast, reliable, professional, passionate way, so to speak, and they become slow, as simply said, then we are here with some costs because we still pay the employee. And those costs are most likely not reflected because first thing is, you know what they actually cost you per hour. That is easy to figure out. But the efficiency behind it, it's very difficult. And sometimes it's emotionally calculated. So that's one part why it's pretty often not just forgotten, but actually it is, or this price tag has actually emotions attached and something emotional, because we talk about it later, I guess. Definitely we have different adoption groups, so different kind of users, different kind of humans, and not those costs are not equal spread across all. So you can either take it an average or you go through the adoption groups and just calculate it. That makes it very difficult to actually say, how much should I invest? And if I want to calculate a return of invest on it, the TCO, so the total cost of this ownership, can be measured. Simply, there are 3 people running around doing something, are paid 2,000 euros a day. I can easily calculate that. That's a TCO. But the ROI, so what impact made that money paid, is very difficult to calculate if I do not measure it. And that makes it in a cross-tenant migration even very difficult, which means like if I didn't do any adoption on the source side already, then I cannot think, okay, if I just migrate, the adoption comes automatically. Beside of this, that new company is different. You have intercultural, you have cultural different, you have company cultural different, you have work structure and culture differences. So you have so many differences where you say, if I just move you into something else, you are still the same person. And most likely, moving a human into a different environment will definitely cause confusion or make someone feel insecure. And there we see insecurity. How should I calculate insecurity?
Yeah,
And that's
totally agreed. Totally agreed with that point. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
this is absolutely the best part to think about when you start with user adoption. As I said, very often this is the first position in a project which got reduced. But at the end, you just have an iceberg principle here. So what you see is actually not everything what relates your success during a migration. So you see the numbers, you see the people, and you can calculate the people by numbers. And then this emotional part coming from all the users, the fear of this change. Every change is pretty hard for every user, especially if you have a tenant-to-tenant migration. This is nothing with a small step. It's affecting the whole work life. I wouldn't say work-life balance, but it's the whole work structure. There will be a huge change, and a regular user is not aware of this upcoming change. That's the reason why we need a change management to communicate about this. But they are insecure, and that's the best word, thank you, Thomas, for the users when they are in the new environment. They are aware of this change, but they are insecure. How does it work? Is there any change they should be aware of? Is there anything they have to consider for the new work? Is there a new way to, I don't know, just from the process perspective, not even from the products, is there something they have to consider as well? So they have a new, not only technical part, they have a ton of different parts to think about, and they are insecure. You have to help them. And you have to talk about your. Let's talk about the structure. Let's maybe start with the idea of change management and user adoption. What can you start? What can you do? What can you plan to reduce the fear? First of all, I was pointing out you have to communicate. Yes, change management is important. Absolutely. Change is you have an overview about the upcoming change and you will communicate this. You make it visible. So as a team, as a project team, you have a plan, right? You are working in your project file, you are working in your migration task planning, you have an idea about that. And then you need a communication to the actual regular user about this. But not the technical person. The technical person responsible for the actual migration is not the person who has to communicate the upcoming change.
Yep.
You have to hear this from a manager and a sponsor, executive level sponsor who's responsible for the project, and he has to support it. It's a must-have for your complete program. This person is the person who has to explain what's going on. What is the why behind that? The reason for this change. Not only now we migrate 2 companies. Good one. Let's go. Now they have to explain what's going on. We have a period of time where this change happens all the time. We have different slots. They have to explain the new steps during a merger and acquisition, for example. What's the idea behind that? What's the brand? Not talking about technical stuff. To understand the business decision behind that. To make a full picture of the decision. This is nothing someone can explain. It's just, and now we have 2 mail server and then we have 1. Okay, that sounds for a technical person exactly the right description, but at the end, for a user, he don't care. or she don't care. The person does not care about where email's coming from and where it's going to, and they don't. Yeah, they have to understand why is this important. Maybe there's a change from the email address they are sending out. There are maybe some external visible layers for the communication with the actual customers, or incoming communication, and what are their new responsibilities even. This is a non-technical topic, and that's just the beginning, unfortunately. Unfortunately for the project, it's not only communication, because the executive sponsor and the executive level can just step up and tell everyone that's the plan, that's the idea. But then you have just communicated the first step. And let's reduce the communication part a little bit. So you will let's estimate you have a communication plan. This is necessary. You have a communication plan and you are aware of the upcoming steps. So this part is done. You have a communication plan. You have a sponsor who can talk about this. You have some options to bring this in your company via newsletter, via podcast, via video, via open door events, a fair in your organization. Something you can offer to give a space for questions. Even a Viva Engage discussion maybe can help, because there's the feeling a user can reach out to the sponsor and ask some questions to understand and get the idea behind the why. There are different options how you can communicate. So let's estimate this is already done, and this is already in place. What's next? Communication is not the only part here. You have to explain a little bit, and it's getting hard for everyone, because user adoption is not training, and training is not user adoption. It's part of it, but it's not completed by training. And everyone gets confused or is confused by just having some trainings in place, and that's it. I don't know what's going wrong. Everyone knows it. We have some trainings, like video on demand. They can use it anytime. But that's not the way you can bring the full picture into the users. This can help to reduce the fear of doing something wrong on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it can help, yes. This can reduce some issues. But user adoption is also about what is the right statement, message, training to the right user. For example, you have a large organization, and this begins at 20 people to 20,000 people, because at the beginning of 20 people, you have different organization levels, you have different roles in your organization, you have different jobs in your organization, and there's another fear, another idea, there's another understanding from the person on a reception to someone who builds some products, to the IT, to the HR department, to the sales department, and everything between. So every person in your organization has another way to work on a daily basis. And this challenges you, because everyone has another understanding. But you still have to address the same why in this language. If someone is touching a PC once a day, for example, because they work in a storage area and they just put in the numbers in SAP once a day, or they transfer some data in SAP, they have to understand it as well. But they need less information as, for example, someone who is working the full time with emails, Teams, SharePoint, SAP, Power BI, whatever, the full stack of a desktop PC or notebook. Don't put me on the device on this level. They use the full IT stack. Let me put it this way. But on the other side, it's more important that the people in a storage area have to understand what's going on to avoid any issues with a part who brings the money. So if the storage area, for example, is not working, or the manufacturing area is not working because they haven't had the information, or they are not sure how they can work with that, then it's even worse, as someone in HR is not using Teams right. So you have to think about who needs what kind of information. And this is not coming from just a high-level description. You look at the job title and everything is good. You have to evaluate your user groups. You have to evaluate the people who are doing pretty much the same. I'm pretty sure you have pretty much the same needs for someone in the back office, no matter which department, instead of just comparing a receptionist, someone in a manufacturing action, someone on a job floor. What is the English term for this? God, I forgot it. Someone who stands in front of the people selling you the product in the store. There's such a nice word. I forgot this. I haven't heard. Yeah. So there are different needs. You have to figure out the user groups there, and then you have to classify them, bring them together into one group of people where you can put in your information. And the risk is you can do it completely wrong by doing it not, but you can overdo it as well. So you have to find a balance. That means, you can, of course, just have your job role and split it up. Everyone in the job role has a specific audience during the user adoption part. But then you have some issues, some time issues. You will never make it to the users. So there has to be a balance. And do you also need someone who can help you on different levels? Yes, it makes sense that you have someone on the management level who can help you to translate the why and the vision from the management level, from a senior management level to the users, some team leads. They can help on this section. and they have to, but you need someone who can actually help on the same level the users are working on. That means if you are in HR department and you have a question, you usually don't raise an easy question or a question you are insecure to your manager. You're actually not going to the HR director and asking, are we using Teams after this change again? Or something which feels not right to ask the manager because you are, once again, afraid, you are insecure because you just are not sure if this is a question you can ask because it should be obvious. And then you hide yourself, still insecure, and you have no one who can help you with this question. There you have something what's called, there are some interesting names. The latest ones are champions in your organization. So you can and should create something like a champions program. And this champions program is nothing special about the capabilities of a user. It's more about the interest of the user. It's more about getting from every department, in the best case, from every department, at least one user into this program, because they can help you as a person who is responsible for the migration to understand the needs of these departments. On the other side, these champions can ask questions responsible for their daily business, especially for their daily needs. This is important because they have maybe another way to work with the same product as the other departments. And so they can address these questions. And this is nothing you do at the end or after the communication is completely done or after everything is, you just completed everything and you just need someone who can tell this in the different departments. No, you have to do this at the very beginning. Bring them into the discussion, bring them into your planning phase, bring them into the communication as well. Provide early information. So they have a user in a department at the same level. You have a colleague, someone who's sitting in your office, in your at the same desk you can meet in the kitchen, and they can tell you, hey, there is a change already, but it's not a huge impact. It's just a small one. We will have information with more details, but I've seen it. They have seen the idea behind that. This is nothing huge. And if you have more questions, you can come to me and raise your question directly, so we can talk about this. And that helps a lot. It reduces the barrier, the communication barrier, the risk for the person who has some questions to raise a so-called stupid question. There's no stupid question. Everyone knows it, but you are still afraid of raising a question that makes you uncomfortable. There, these champions can help you with. It's really, really a good helper in your project, because they can give you also some ideas you may haven't thought about during the planning for your migration. For example, if you have a crucial process for your new hires in a HR department, and it's maybe hidden because this is something HR department has created on their own. I don't know, the communication platform for the first contact, for example, is not your main communication platform. It's maybe something external because of an easier way to have the communication. It's more popular outside of your organization, or even easier to handle for external users. Or webinars. These are something pretty common scenarios you have in organizations. It's still HR, and on a daily basis, they use the products you provide them and offer, but they have some other things to work with. And you just learn it from these champions. There are some needs. There are also maybe some needs you can discover and explain, oh, that's not necessary to do this anymore with product X, because an internal product can do this as well. So you have a chance. It's not a one way in this part here. It's something that can help you a lot. Also to reduce some external costs by having external services or shadow IT. And yeah. Just give me a second. I have to drink something. I would like to use this to raise the question to you guys. Have you ever had the experience of a champions program, no matter on which side?
So to speak, when I worked with Caruana from Microsoft based on this, yes. On the customer side, no. That was most likely always, so to speak, too expensive to them. So they don't want it. And they rejected it. And it's important. The only thing I had once is, we called it earlier key user program. That was at least something. But the real champion who innovates, who motivates, who drives change and innovation, no. Clear sentence or clear answer, actually no.
Yeah, likewise, same here. I really haven't had a chance to be a champion as such, because as you said, as tech guys, you're just looked to do the tech stuff and other things. So that hasn't really come to, at least in my hands yet.
Actually, I had pretty much the same experience until I created one during a project, and in the first place, I just heard, we don't need that. We have our key users, and that was the reason why I was smiling, because key users has a long history. And usually these are the people in your organization in contact with IT who gets the earliest version, the next Office rollout, the next SAP version, to try it out on a daily basis and give some feedback to IT. And this is so old that some key users are not aware of this anymore. So they are in this key user program, but they have still no idea that they should do something, or they don't know it anymore. Especially they do it in a one-to-one direct or one-to-one relationship between the key users and the IT. This is the job of these users is not about helping your co-workers. It's not to enable your department and understand the upcoming changes or to raise some questions. This is nothing what's coming up during. This is a main issue I see in companies. Many companies have a key user program already, and they think if I can use these key users, then it's fine. It's almost the same as the champion program, but there are differences. And you have to be aware of this. And communication and also telling the good part of the upcoming migration, the positive explanation about the migration, these changes, is one of these parts. And you never get a person into this program by force. If you try this, it will work. They will be there and they will complain. They will complain in the meetings on the champions program. They will complain in the department. They will complain with the communication with colleagues, with his management, and everything you do is just a bad idea.
Yeah, and that brings me back to the point of a cross-tenant migration, which is under all circumstances even painful. That means like there is no smooth migration for whatever money you spend. It is still not possible. And if we now see this, and we are absolutely aware that there will be no smooth transition, then it becomes like for the change people, for the key user people, for the champions. So you need them actually all. And you need to have a trustful person where you can, because you shouldn't, I mean, yes, you should complain as a user, but on the other hand, it doesn't matter so, which means your company is either bought or someone had made a mistake, which means, yes, you can complain you are bought, all fine, that is all valid. But on the other hand, you need to take a step. And sometimes the step to become more productive and more efficient and can really move into adoption, it is a painful step. That means like you need to come out of your comfortable zone. And that there it starts. If it's not well explained enough, and it has nothing to do with the tenant-to-tenant migration, why that company, for example, was bought, why you should be integrated, what you want to achieve, what is in for you. And that is always what I say the most or the utmost important question. Tell the user, tell the human what is in for him or her, or it or she or whatever. So that means still then you can trigger something. But if you break it over the knee, so to speak, and say, we have to do it because we have to do it. What is this? We are not kids, right? That means like, it's the why question, and then it's like that. It's like that. It's like that. It's not an answer. There is a benefit. Reducing overhead on IT, keeping IT people, making a change for IT is there to support your daily business. Which, by the way, it's a nice story on that one. I had a customer, it's 4 years ago, for 4.5 actually. The IT entirely changed. And the IT was now there to make each and every user happy and build processes, apps, and whatever else they needed to support them in their daily work. You know what was happening? They asked us to make a marketing campaign because all users, and that were roughly 100,000 users, all in this company said, IT was never there for users. We don't believe you. So that means
that's the trust they had.
Was the most advanced customer I've ever seen in my life. And nobody believed him. Even I was sitting there, so my mouth open, like, oh, I can't believe it. You really do it. You are really driving adoption. You are really changing into a business process supporting department because you have understood what cloud is for. And then the entire company said, yeah, that I heard everywhere IT is, no, IT always restricts users. So it's awareness, trust, all those stuff which we need to make. And there's a huge change. And yes, I completely agree. I would also not believe that IT is there to support someone because I never had that experience in my life. As an IT person, you always get that answer by, hey, you IT, you can do it yourself. So that is even worse. I want to have someone who helps me. I want to be efficient. I want adoption, but I need to. I want also someone who helps me, because I'm only that person with the 3 stars on my shoulder. So I know somebody who can migrate and write scripts, but I can coordinate. But I could coordinate even better if I would adapt cloud even further. And I need sometimes someone who develops, for example, who can guide you things and who make the process a little smoother. And that's where adaption is actually important too. And I will see how my pilot users are going tomorrow in another migration without any single communication if a customer just forgot to send.
Awesome.
Awesome. They will wake up tomorrow and don't know where they are.
Surprise.
Surprise, not paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know where they are.
in the best case, you have an IT who can help you with multiple steps, and the trust and relationship is really, really important there. But as you said, this is pretty uncommon. This is a kind of theoretical idea. It's not there right now. There's a change upcoming. There are a lot of changes in this area because IT understands with all the cloud services, with all these managed services, they have more chances and to support the organization and the people. But especially when it comes to a tenant-to-tenant migration, you have different cultures as well for the users. That means you have to adopt this culture as well, not only the technical part, but also the change in the culture, or at least explain something. What's your change? What is the change, for example, from a traditional IT to a supportive IT? Or if you have a supportive IT, why you go back to a more restrictive and more traditional IT? You have to explain what is the why. The reason is the most important part for every migration. Also or especially for tenant-to-tenant migration, where you may have built a company structure, a company culture for the last 20 years or even more. And everyone is working with this mantra, you work like this, you expect this. And then there's a change.
Yeah. It's always the part of what's in for you. But just one part, because I guess that's a topic to make people even understand, which is where we can talk longer than actually on certain technical migration approaches.
Mm-hmm.
But also is the balance. I've seen something on a change and adoption team which accompanied me in the migration. If you could imagine, I would have had hairs before that project. Afterwards, I would definitely look like this, not just technically, but I should actually ask you what you think, how many SharePoint sites, how many text, how many mails, and how many pages of paper in writings, in digital, everyone got on this in this company. And to make it actually short, yes, they were nicely informed about the journey with roughly sending them out 6 to 8 emails. So like a welcome email at the end. And things, this one I still liked, was good. But in total, then they had explanation. And the mails, including this, it took me to read one single mail actually 20 minutes. Then the links behind, I gave up because I would have wasted another week to read it. So that means in total, they were created for all the services and each user. So that means each user in total, what the user had to read, of nearly 150 pages of paper. Not even able to search proper in it, which I have no idea. So what's in for you? Nothing, because what will be happen now? Then better ignore. Let's see what comes up. So that means also the balance needs to be. And that's what I say. Yes, but structure it, please. Means like, here's the rough overview. Here's the one pager. If you want to know more, go to the next one. If you want to talk to a technician, here it is. Use Teams. Make a chatbot or what. Just let people ask someone. There are people who are interested. There are people which are absolutely not interested. They are buzzed by all changes. So that means for them, you need to have something, make the communication ready so that everyone finds his personal information, his own motivation, and don't standardize it for each and everyone. And at the end, make so much happen that even the slightest click is explained. And by the way, not to forget, that also designed 20 videos. So I thought, wow, a lot of money. Not bad. If I should just adapt that one into my cross-tenant migration technical documents I'm sharing, I could extend it from 70 to already 200 pages. Yeah, I was speechless, so to speak.
You, from personal experience, yes, I had a discussion with the customers. Are you communicating with your users? And they say, yes, we send out emails for every change and every upcoming important information from the IT. Okay, how do you send this email? In the first place, it sounds good. In the first place, it sounds really they are informed. How do you do it? Yeah, we have a single mailbox and there we send out every information. Okay, that's good. Not because everything you send out, like in your international companies, you have a public holiday in one country, is coming from this mailbox. They don't, maybe they are not interesting for everyone. You send out long, very, very long emails about these topics in multiple languages in the same email. So you have a German, you have an English, you have a French, and you have a Spain text in your email.
Oh,
Pardon?
In one email or
In
three
one
or four?
email. In
That's great.
one email. And there you put in also the descriptions. You put in the screenshots as well if you have something to explain. It sounds good at the first place, but please think about their user experience. You receive at least 2 or 5 emails per week from the IT about the same topic in 4 different languages on a very long email. And you have your daily work. You have to figure out what's your language, what is interesting for you. Is it even this change important for you? So they realized it doesn't make sense to put it this way. So we changed the structure. We use other communication ways. We send out short emails with links to SharePoint articles or Yammer discussions. Sorry, Viva Engage discussions. And there is a language switch. So you have the same information and the different languages you can choose from, or even they got discovered from on the SharePoint side. We use another communication medium, like the company communicator from Teams. It's a small, free, available bot you can implement, put out some messages to target groups. So not everyone is involved in every discussion. You have a specific number of users you can reach out. And there you have a more direct communication. You have a short description that helps you to send out the information. There's an important change about this and that topic. And if you are interested to learn more about this, follow this link to a detailed article. Yeah. That helps the user to get the idea behind that. Is this change important for the user? Is it affecting my daily work? Do I have right now the time to read everything? Or can I go to SharePoint? And also important, is it available after the actual event? Is it something which is available in a search to give other users who may have missed this email because they are maybe on an annual leave, not annual leave, but on a parent leave, for example. Some companies disable the account, or you are a new hire in the organization and you just missed this email. But the change is still coming up next week. So you still have some chances to get the idea. You realize what's affecting you and how do you may have to prepare. And Thomas said something very important, and this is the last point I would highlight here. Thomas said something in a short sentence. You can reach every user, but not every user is interested in this information. You have some users who are really interested in new topics. They want to be part of it. They want to be part of the discussion and explanations and everything of your next step. These are the people you want to have in your champions program. You have the regular users. They say, another change, another impact on my daily work. Okay, I will do this. Tell me what you want to do from what I have to do here. That's okay. And then you have the users with a strong resistance. And they put everything, every effort, every minute they have to destroy your idea, destroy everything you prepared, the communication, the idea, the positive ways, and they find so many bad things about the upcoming changes. They will tell everyone. But guess what? It takes you 5 times more effort to convince these people every single time in your project for every single change. When you try to bring them to the level of a regular user, they just accept. So offer your help. Be supportive. Don't ignore them completely. But if you realize there's a huge resistance, you just can put in as much effort as you would like. You will never change the mind. So do it on a regular base. Do it up to the level of a regular user. And after that, you have to force them. Fortunately, this is just a small portion of your users. This is just a small number of users in your organization. Most of the time.
Adaption group number 5, ledgers, for everyone who wants to have a look into it. Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe one last sentence, even on my side. Thing is, keep the different communication ways available to the users who make them use, because if you missed adoption in the earlier place and you just invented or invited users into Teams without adoption, don't think Teams is always the right way. So you have SharePoint, you have mails, you have letters, you have verbal communication, you have Teams, you have bots. Find something actually which works for most of your users, but do not think a single medium will do.
Totally got it. Yep.
Oops. So.
Yep.
I think that's a very interesting topic, and
underestimated.
And underestimated, and most likely then, if so, overcomplicated.
And often overlooked.
And it always to say sometimes less is more, rather than writing so many things until even the architect of a project completely gave up reading it because he said, no, I have still some other work to do. And that's important. Find people, get people stressed, find the different, get feedback as well is also super important. And yes, don't discourage yourself by the ledgers.
And use marketing tricks. I had a customer who just put it in some small informations here and there, and everyone passed these crucial points at on the company area, and was wondering, what is this? What where is it coming from? What is it? And then after some interest, they released more and more information, and everyone was interested. They had already a positive thinking about this because they would like to know what it is. They are eager to understand what is this term standing for, what's going on there, what are they planning already. And so you have the interest, and they are more positive to understand this. Use some marketing tricks there that can help.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vignesh, Thomas. Thank you very much for everyone who joined us today. I would like to add the link again for your questions if you want to raise the questions before we have our next live stream on the 19th. And yes, thank you very much also for the input we've got. And we see each other in 2 weeks with a huge Q&A session. Enjoy your time until then.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.